Welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad and the Odd One Out with your host Mark. Today I'd like to talk about a pair of films that are very, very, very loosely coupled. The second one is barely a sequel to the first, and that's American Psycho and American Psycho 2. American Psycho came out in 2000. I think it was a little overlooked, in my opinion. It came out around the same time as Fight Club, and there was really a lot of interest and press in Fight Club at the time, and I always remember thinking, why all this fuss for Fight Club? American Psycho is a much better film, and I'm still of that opinion, though my view on Fight Club has improved over time. I always thought Fight Club had a brilliant first half and a quite poor second half. I've mellowed a little, but I still don't think this is. I think he's overrated a little, but that's by the by. American Psycho, Christian Bale putting in a fantastic performance here as a genuine American psychotic. Patrick Bateman, ironically, one letter out from Batman. He's an investment banker living like the yuppie kind of dream, but he's fueled by sort of a lot really sociopathic and psychopathic tendencies that, as the film goes on, you're not quite sure how real and how not they are. But when I saw this film, I laughed a lot. I saw it as nothing more than a black comedy, a very, very black comedy, but a black comedy nonetheless. I'm not sure everyone sees it that way, but I think a fair amount of people do. I think there's the most obvious scene in it that indicates a comedy is hilarious, and that's a scene where several well-to-do sort of Wall Street bankers are starting to compare business cards, and it's nice to watch Bateman slowly unravelling as he pulls out a card that he thinks is the best, and other guys start pulling out other cards which are better and better and better, and you can see him sort of really starting to crack. And then he finally does something about it out of the public eye. I also like how he's completely vacuous, and he tries to add depth to himself by talking about subjects that have got little depth, but I treat them in such a way as they're deep philosophical insights. He talks about, for example, the output of Genesis and Huey Lewis and the News and things like that. Whitney Houston. While people were making fun of him, even he's doing it, and he doesn't seem to understand how he looks to people sometimes, and he does show a trace of humanity when he takes his secretary out and he asks her to go, and she says, "Oh, I always pick the wrong guys," or something like that, and he goes, "I think you better leave, otherwise I'm going to hurt you," and he means chop your ears off or something, where she thinks he means emotional. He says, "Yeah, I'm always getting hurt," and she leaves. And there's other things where, for example, he's killed someone and he takes over their apartment for one night, and this girl, he's already a prostitute that he's already been with. He takes this new apartment. She said, "Oh, this is a much nicer apartment than your old one," and obviously it isn't his apartment, so that makes him a bit nutsy. There's some great performances in here, but I mean, really outstanding is Christian Bale. Really enjoyed this film. I thought it was really quite spectacularly good. I'd give it mid to high 70s, and it is actually 7.6 on IMDb, which I think is a fair reflection. It's just, the only thing wrong with it is, I think the filmmaker was going for ambiguity at the end in what was happening, whether it was real, whether it was fantasy. They were going for ambiguity, but I think it was directed by a woman. Hold on, Mary Harron. Mary Harron was the director. I think, unfortunately, rather than feeling ambiguous, it feels confused towards the end, and that's a bit of a problem. But that might be just my perception. I'm not quite sure. But I've seen it several times, and I always feel it feels confused. But there's some spectacularly good scenes in this. There's one with a pair of prostitutes near the beginning. Well, not that near the beginning. Where he goes, he wants her for the night to make him feel good, and he's posing while he's with these girls, and it's super funny. And he's doing all sorts of posery things. He's like working out. He's really buff in this. He looks really good as well, but you can tell his mind is completely deranged. He's a vice president in investment bank, and he doesn't actually do anything. He just scribbles in a notebook, which is like doodlings of people getting stabbed and all sorts of weird sexual and sadistic imagery, and that his secretary finds one day. And then he starts trying to tell people he's murdering people. No one will believe him, but you're not sure if it's fantasy or not. Anyway, so Patrick Bateman is something of an amazing character. And Kristen Bell did a really great job with this. In some respects, he's not that far from his Batman Bruce Wayne persona, funnily enough. And not because he's a limited actor in any way. It feels like Batman's the good psychotic, and this is the bad version of that same psychosis, or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But I see similarities in the performance. Really enjoyed it, as I say. Now, there was this is a book written by Bret Easton Ellis, which I've tried to read and I find particularly vile, so I haven't read it. And I'm fairly easygoing. I read most books. This I just found deeply unpleasant, couldn't read it, but I do enjoy the film a lot. And there was also I was kind of tempted to do it in this particular podcast. I was going to look into what could be a sort of companion piece, which is The Rules of Attraction, where the main character in that book is the brother of Patrick Bateman, and there was a film made, but I saw it a while back and I didn't like it. I didn't like the film at all. I didn't really want to revisit it, but what I thought about it, because I've heard other commentators, I think Chinstroker versus Punter on his Facebook talked about it. Really thought he spoke reasonably well of Rules of Attraction. I was tempted to, but I decided not to in it. Just on this and the so-called sequel to it. Anyway, this came out 2000, 13 years old now. Still feels very fresh to watch, amazingly so. Okay, that brings us on to its odd little sequel, American Psycho 2, All American Girl. This was made 2 years later. I believe it was straight to video. I'm not entirely sure of that. However, it has almost nothing to do with American Psycho. What it has to do with, Patrick Bateman kind of appears as a character at the beginning, but it's not Kristen Bell, it's someone else. He's shot from behind, so you don't see him. And it involves, you see, he's got a 12-year-old girl tied up, and who's being forced to watch him kill her babysitter or something like that. But she then escapes and kills him and the babysitter. And it turns into Mila Kunis. Mila Kunis is the lead in this, and she's a girl called Rachel, who has got an interest in serial killers. I think something to do with witnessing it early, perhaps. It's kind of not suggested. And she wants to be in the FBI helping to track them down, whereas she herself is a murderer as well. So it's kind of Dexter kind of vibe. It's not bad, this film. It's nothing like the original, and it's not up to that sort of quality, but I kind of enjoyed it. It's barely a sequel. They didn't have to be a sequel at all. It could have been a completely different film. Sorry, different title. All American Girl actually fits it as a title. It's quite a good title for this film. As I say, all there is Patrick Bateman appears in it, and they actually then talk. Part of the talk is about famous serial killers, and sometimes they'll say, Ted Bundy and things like that, and then they'll mention Patrick Bateman. And she's at like this school doing work about forensic science and stuff like that, and pathology. And her lecturer's William Shatner, of all people, who's supposed to be the FBI's most famous, like, mind hunter, whatever they're called, profiler finding serial killers. And she's in this class, and basically, if she does well enough, she gets recommended to I think to go. I can't even remember now. It's to go on, and basically, you're in the FBI if you get this certain recommendation, become assistant teacher or something like that. Which is where she wants to be. She wants to track down other serial killers. But when people start frustrating her plans, she turns to murder fairly easily. The vibe of this film is kind of like To Die For, you know, Nicole Kidman topping people if they get in her way. It's kind of a goofy comedy-like kind of vibe, which doesn't say the materials at all, but it's done quite well. Mila Kunis does it so confidently and with kind of a lot of verve, which she does in a lot of her work, that it works. It works as a film. It's fine. It's more like a comedy that hasn't got the sort of comedy that makes you smile a bit, not laugh out loud. And she's doing these goofy things and people wearing it. Unfortunately, William Shatner's fairly flat in this. He doesn't bring much of a performance. He doesn't bring any of his weird quirks or even he doesn't put that much energy into it, which is unusual for him. He usually does, even in films where he's like a backseat, for example. This Congeniality, he still brings some of that old Shatner energy. It doesn't match to this, which is a shame. So it could have been anyone. But what carries this film, what gives it any interest at all, is Mila Kunis. She's pretty darn good in it, and I liked her in it. I thought she was good. The film itself wasn't great, but it was okay. It's got 3.9 out of IMDb. I'd say it's better than that. I'd say it's probably 5.5, something like that. It's not a great film, but it's okay. Really, it's about as far from a genuine sequel as you could possibly get. But 88 minutes long, fine, flies by. I think I saw it on Netflix or one of the streaming medias. Yeah, it was Netflix. So easy to get hold of and easy to watch. And if you've got to choose between the two, you pick the first one, definitely, no question at all. This is a quite inferior film that really doesn't have any bearing, doesn't have any of the tone or anything of the first one. However, in its own standalone way, and it would have been better, in my opinion, as a standalone, just called All American Girl, and any Bateman stuff just removed. It's okay. Okay then, so there we go. That's American Psycho and American Psycho 2 covered. Bye.